This is At Your Service, the service management podcast from CRM Audio, with your hosts, Shawn Tabor and Scott LaFontaine.
KingswaySoft is a leading integration solution provider, offering software solutions that make data integration affordable and painlessly easy. Thousands of enterprise clients from over 70 countries and regions rely on KingswaySoft to integrate their data with various business systems in order to drive their business efficiency and fully leverage their information assets. KingswaySoft is a leading provider of Microsoft Dynamics integration software, including Dynamics 365, CRM, AX, NAV, GP, SL, as well as many other applications, such as Marketo, Dropbox, QuickBooks, and Salesforce. Whether you need one solution or several, KingswaySoft works easily within the SSIS platform to make your integration processes as quick and easy as possible. Many of their clients have seen 3 to 10 times greater data integration performance after switching to the SSIS integration platform. We thank KingswaySoft for sponsoring this episode of At Your Service.
Welcome to another episode of At Your Service, the service management podcast here on the CRM Audio Network. I am your host, Shawn Tabor, and this week it's a recorded up from Extreme 365. Unfortunately, my co-hosts Scott and Yvonne were not present, but I was able to get time and speak with Colin Vermander from Adoxio, and we talk a lot about self-service portals and their abilities, capabilities, and what you want to look for when implementing. It's a great conversation. I hope you enjoy it, and as always, we're at your service. Now let's send it to Long Beach, where I talked with Colin Vermander from Adoxio. Okay, well, here we are at Extreme 365 yet again with another segment. And of course, it's at your service, so it's service related. And yet another guest. It's like a guestful episode. We have Colin Vermander from Adoxio. Welcome, Colin.
Hi, Shawn. Thanks for having me.
Hey, it's my pleasure. Thank you for joining us. Tell our folks out there listening, our scads of subscribers, the hundreds of subscribers. Tell them a little bit about yourself, what you do for Adoxio, who Adoxio is. They may not know.
Sure. Yeah, no, I'd be happy to. So I'm the technical director for Adoxio. So I oversee all of Adoxio's service delivery projects. So any project that we deliver for a client, I oversee the technical implementation of that.
Right.
Adoxio comes from Adoxio Studio. So we actually built the portal product that Microsoft now sells. The services arm of Adoxio Studio was actually spun off during that acquisition, and we kept doing the consulting business in terms of implementing portals for customers. So we're currently starting to build product again. So we're starting to build some vertical solutions focused around self-service, both for government as well as private organizations.
Cool. Yeah, big fan of, shout out to Grant McLarnon. How's it going, Grant? Now I'm going to see if he's actually going to listen.
Yeah.
So it's great. So as part of, our podcast here is really focused on the service management components of Dynamics 365. And we have not yet talked about portals and the complexity behind them, what it takes to really implement them, because, there's so many service management pieces, we just haven't got to it. But with the ability for an online customer to have a portal, out of the box, ready to go, it makes it seem very, very simple, very, very easy to do, which it is easy to spin up the portal. But the implementation of the portal and the things that you really have to take into account in your project, the things that you have to take into account for the user experience for that customer coming in the portal, these are things that I don't think enough people understand what that means, and why someone like Adoxio or someone like even me coming in from my company would come in to help a potential customer get through that process. So talk about some of the things that a customer needs to really think about when implementing a customer self-service portal.
So when we walk into a client, we really try not to solution out of the box. We try to understand their business problems, their business processes, and kind of analyze those as to how best to solution them after we walk away.
Okay.
So we kind of separate the requirements gathering and the solution process so that they're two different things. And we understand the problem, the business problem, more so than the actual solution before we're building anything at first.
Okay. So with that understanding their business, what are some of the typical challenges that folks have in terms of self-service? I've seen in my time, customers want to have that portal do everything and have everything automated so they literally don't have to do anything. That oftentimes leads to some confusion and chaos. So what's your take on that?
Well, businesses often think of their own internal processes first and not necessarily their own customer's experience. They're trying to get the customer's information and make their business processes work internally, not necessarily how the process can work for the customer. So we try to analyze the business requirements as well as trying to put ourselves in the actual client's shoes or the customer's shoes using that client's software as to how they might want to interact with the system. We find that user experiences can be a huge driving force for clients actually using the system and actually following through and continuing to use the application long term as well.
What I tend to try to do in implementations is use, especially with a customer that thinks that the customer self-service portal is the end-all be-all to all of their woes and problems with communicating to their customer. And eliminating unnecessary user intervention. I try to develop essentially a user experience journey map, right? Identifying the types of people that are coming into that portal, identifying what actions my customer is trying to engage with their customer through that portal, and what that means to their back-end processes, right? And what I have found is when you engage at that level, especially with portal-related things, it can either create great optimism to what the portal can do or great consternation that it can't do everything they want it to do.
Yeah, I mean, as ADX Studio, we had these 7 starter portals. And from the outset, those would look great to customers, and they would kind of buy into them, but then they would want to apply their business processes to them. So it was taking the business processes as well as understanding the audience they wanted to expose those processes to and really massaging them into something that was a workable process. Often these processes are very complicated from a back office perspective, and it's about figuring out how you're going to deliver that process to somebody that has no clue and doesn't necessarily care about the back office at the same time. So it's a lot of solutioning, looking at kind of user experiences in terms of how people use sites and use applications at the same time and where they're going to be using them from. We have a lot of clients where we're implementing partner relationship portals, and they're actually going out to customer sites on tablets. And you need to really consider the device sometimes that somebody's using as the user experience you're building and how simple that's going to be for them to do on site while they're talking to somebody at the same time. So,
do you find that the desire to automate everything is often quelled, or where does that come from? It seems like there's just something magical about a portal to make a customer think they don't have to do anything.
So you have to find a happy medium between satisfying the back office business process, but also providing a user experience that is workable for the front end at the same time. So the back office often has demands that cannot be fulfilled in an easy way from a user experience standpoint. That is also something that the client can maintain in a configuration aspect moving forward. Often we want to build solutions that we can leave our customers with and they can maintain and build and grow them themselves.
Right.
If you customize that solution to the nth degree, then you're leaving that customer in quite the predicament kind of moving forward. So it will cost them a lot of money to implement and then a lot of money to maintain, plus the knowledge that they have to be able to maintain that moving forward is a lot of, for them to take on, a lot of responsibility for them to have.
Right. So many endpoints, so many variations of action. what I like to try to do is focus on key areas where that engagement with Portal is not only has a higher degree of success, but the native functionality of the portal can fulfill it, right? Focus there, and then talk about, for example, now you have, with the framework we have available to us, you have the potential of integrating things like Cafe X for omni-channel. You know, you could have chat pop up. You could have bots. You could have all kinds of things. But when, in your process, when do you find it's the best time to layer those in? Do you find if they have those kind of requirements, do you find it more challenging when that portal is first being implemented? Or is that something over time that you recommend that you ease into that?
So with all of our clients, we have small projects, large projects. Most of them, regardless of the size, we'd like to take some sort of an iterative approach where they're kind of getting their feet wet, touching some features, configuring some things, and then seeing how their users react to it, and then building upon how that reaction is. So we've implemented the Cafe X chat a number of times and been quite successful with that, and done it on the web, and then kind of added it to a call center interface after the fact. So kind of taking it as it comes and kind of leveling up the skill that the client has at the same time. Because you have to build up that knowledge internally to be able to use the CRM system or the dynamic system at the same time as your own users are utilizing the portal from a self-service function. So it takes a lot of knowledge internally as well as externally to do all of that.
Have you had much experience or success implementing bots?
So we're doing some work with bots in terms of we're working with Cafe X to implement from their bot framework perspective. Right now, a lot of the bot framework information that we've been working with has been very scripted. So it's not as intelligent or artificial as we might want it to be, but it's kind of a process to build it at this point. So, and just continue to iterate, I would say, so that it becomes more in-depth and more automated. At the same time, we have clients that don't want to have bots because they potentially take jobs away or are removing skill internally. So it's a back and forth fight that you have to play and kind of find a happy medium in between.
How do you manage when you're looking at things like bots and omni-channel experience? How do you balance a global perspective? A lot of customers, yours and mine, are larger and multinational, right? Multilingual.
Yep.
How do you balance that in the implementation, and how do you balance that in how you decide to fulfill those requirements?
I'd say you're going back again to the iteration where you're taking a little bit on, seeing how it plays out, and then moving forward and making the decision as to what is the next thing that you're going to actually implement. So we often will start out with an English or a single language site and then see the reaction or see the audience and see what they're actually wanting out of that experience, and then layer on another language or layer on another functionality that might later enhance that type of functionality, the existing functionality that's there. So I'd say you really have to analyze as your implementation goes, kind of getting feedback both from the customer internally as well as the audience that you're exposing all of these things to. It's probably a never-ending process, which is great from a consulting services standpoint.
Sure.
But it can be tough to kind of manage the expectations of everybody at the same time.
Yeah. In terms of the self-service aspects, do you have some, in your head, do you have like example websites that do a great job of self-service as opposed to not so great job?
Yeah, I can definitely think of some offhand. Some of the partner relationship management sites we've done can be quite complex business processes where the client that we're working with wants to expose a lot of internal business functionality to a set of partners and vendors, and that business process can be quite complex involve integrations and various other things, where you have all the way to the other side where it's a simple form that I'm filling out that maybe has a couple of conditional steps, and it's just information captured at the same time. So it really varies. I think, again, you want to go back to the iteration. You want to start small, see how it comes out, and see how much more you can layer on top of that as you go. We've had experiences where we've kind of done the big bang type of launch, and you've had everything at once, and the learning curve has just been so high for the audience consuming that portal that the portal ends up failing as a result, because the curve is so high for them to actually uptake and use the application.
Have you had any customers leverage the portal because it has a responsive design, right? Have you had them leverage that as almost a mobile solution for their customers?
Absolutely, yeah. So we've done a lot of research to see if we should go into the mobile app building or build mobile apps on top of the portal framework. And a lot of the research that we found is that the apps that you have on your phone, you probably only use about 2% of them. So you might install an app, use it once, and then you never use it again. Right. It is also very troubling to update all of those apps on all the platforms and all the different versions out there. I mean, we all know how many versions of Android there are out there, so managing all of that can be a very costly process and something that's laborious for you to do to get something as a new feature out there. When you're dealing with a portal, you're just updating one site, and it's available on every device, be it a desktop, laptop, tablet computer, or a mobile phone, and it just works. So the portal uses the Bootstrap framework to do that responsive design, and that's become quite a standard in the industry. So I'd say we've been quite successful in the website approach rather than the app approach, and our customers have been happy with that at the same time. We also have taken the approach of iframing in a site to an app if somebody actually wants a listing in a store of some sort. So there are alternatives if you do want that store listing and still want the ability to update your app without worrying about all the platforms or all the versions that are out there.
How is your, given all the different components of Dynamics 365 now, how does that adjust Adoxio's look at where they should focus their efforts in terms of portal development?
It's definitely a tough one considering all the components that are out there now. We like to kind of focus on solutions that we think will be unique in the marketplace in terms of verticals that we're going to build out ourselves. Those that are reusable, something that can be shared amongst a large group of people, and therefore there's a larger investment by multiple companies, and therefore the feature sets gets richer and for everybody at the same time. So I'd say we really focus on municipal as well as partner and self-service type solutions. We haven't explored a lot of field service or project service yet at this time, just because the uptake in the marketplace hasn't been as high as the other solutions at this point.
Right. And in terms of self-service, there's one question that is always just needles at me in the back of my brain, and my answer is always the same, but I want to see if yours is the same. When a customer says, I want my end customer, so the portal customer, to get a notification when something's happened, what does that mean to you?
I want some sort of an email, probably.
Unfortunately, yes. Which drives me insane.
Yes.
The concept of a portal message center, I think, can be extremely powerful. Right? The ability to see their agreements, to see what their service status is. Those driving them to that portal to do a lot of their capabilities, I think, is a great play. When you start to overdo that in terms of not only do I want them there, but I want them to be able to do everything so my people don't have to do anything, that's when I think you run into trouble.
Yeah, you can go definitely too far. I mean, What we've done in the past is we've created a lot of dashboards and a lot of ones that are interactive, so that you are engaged in that data and you're invested in it. So you want to fill in that data as a consumer of the portal so that you can see it in your dashboard and see the results, and therefore you encourage your team to fill in the information in the dashboard. It does still involve an interaction of you going to that site and actually logging in and seeing that type of information. So there are those that still want that email notification or that daily summary type of report.
Right.
They're not nearly as robust or as interactive. So we try to make them as fun an experience and as thrilling as experience visually as well, kind of using some of the new JavaScript charting libraries that are out there that kind of, really provide a pizzazz to what the portal can look like.
Right.
So a lot of the time, you can provide something that looks beautiful and is not necessarily as functional, but it's really engaging at the same time. So you have to have that design sense to you at the same time as the functionality that you're building to engage the partner users or the portal users in the actual product itself.
So tagging on to the engagement concept, what is, in your mind, the most important thing to do for a portal to engage that customer, to get them to want to put their information in and to want to interact? I've had customers say, well, we give them like a 5% discount, or we give them, is it a monetary thing? Is it a, what is it?
I think usability is the biggest thing. So being able to use it in a simple way and it just feel natural. Design plays a huge role in people wanting to come back and use something again. You're not going to go use CRM if you have a hard time clicking around within it, or if the experience is bad, if it's slow. So usability with all of the factors that come to usability would be my top thing for people being successful with the actual portal itself.
It's a great point. I think there's a ton that you can do just out of the box with the self-service portal that Microsoft provides. But I think what we've talked about in terms of understanding the requirements, measuring expectations, setting the bar in terms of what the roadmap would be for a portal deployment, and providing that roadmap, right, to not only to help the customer get a portal that's going to suit their needs, but in order for their internal resources to be able to manage that portal, maintain that portal, and extend that portal for the long term. I think that's great advice.
Yeah.
That's great advice.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
So, and I have to think this was all you're doing, and Grant had nothing to do with it.
No, Grant, I don't even know who you're talking
Good
about.
man. Good man. Well, Colin, I really appreciate you coming on, and I'd love to have you in the future if you ever have anything you want to talk about.
We'd be happy to share some of our success stories and kind of talk about some of the things that we did.
Fantastic.
For sure.
I appreciate it very much, Colin.
At Your Service is a production of Dynamic Podcasts LLC. Follow Shawn on Twitter at CRM Hobbit. Subscribe to the CRM Audio network of podcasts on Apple Podcasts, Google Play Music, SoundCloud, Stitcher, TuneIn, or any place else that fine podcasts are available. You can email us at voice@crm.audio. Thanks again to our sponsors, Kingsway Soft and Alexa CRM.